It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of October 4th, 1996. Another one of those weeks where I had a certain number of movies I was going to look at, but couldn't find any footage of the last movie that was on this list, Small Wonders, which couldn't find any footage anywhere, couldn't find any video on YouTube to talk about, but it's weird because that movie actually inspired another movie that came out a couple years later, Music of the Heart, but can't find that documentary anywhere, so unfortunately we won't be able to review that, but we got 6 other movies to look at, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Steven Seagal and Keenen Ivory Wayans in The Glimmer Man. So yeah, this was kind of that point where Steven Seagal's star power was kind of dipping down, and Keenen Ivory Wayans really did not know what his career path was going to be. Was he going to stick with comedy? Was he going to do more action films like this? Because he also did a Low Down Dirty Shame, which was not a good film at all. But at least that movie was better than this movie. I mean, wow, this is a film that is just... It just doesn't work. The chemistry between Steven Seagal and Keenen Ivory Wayans just doesn't work here. It's not Wayans' fault. Wayans is trying the best he can with this. It's Steven Seagal who really is struggling to keep up with the movie and what they're trying to do here. I mean, the guy can't be funny in real life. Like, he can't be funny in a role like this and play himself and like make fun of himself. Like he did an Executive Decision where he kind of where it was kind of a bold move for him to be killed off halfway through the movie, even though he was one of the main stars of it. But here, it's just it's like a precursor to his direct-to-video movies that he would eventually make from this point on, going forward. And it's just like their chemistry does not work well here at all. Wayans is trying his best here, but the real problem is with Steven Seagal, trying to keep up with him, trying to establish a comedic chemistry. Like, you need that in a buddy movie like this. If you can't get that, then your movie is completely destroyed, and sadly, that's the case here. I mean, it's just not enough for... Wayans is trying his best to hold on to this as much as he can, but he's just failing to do anything of note here. It's not that funny. It's not that engaging. The story isn't even all that clever. It's not that intriguing at all. It's a film that just really doesn't work on any level, shape, or form. It's a huge mess. It was a huge bomb at the box office, and like I said, it was kind of the end of Steven Seagal's star power at this point. It was starting to dwindle down. And again, Keenen Ivory Wayans just couldn't decide which direction he wanted his career to go at this point. But he would eventually make his way back to comedy in a few years. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, The Glimmer Man is not a very good movie. So let's step away from that movie and actually talk about a really good movie. In fact, one of my all-time favorite movies came out this weekend, and that is Tom Hanks' directorial debut, That Thing You Do. So as I mentioned before, this is actually very high on my top favorite movies of all time. Number 11, actually. It's that close to the top 10. I mean, I love this movie. What makes it work as a whole? There's just so much here that I think works really well here. I think the story works very well. Tom Hanks does a good job of taking the story that we've seen done over and over again. It's been done to death so many times. And he gives it its own little twists and turns to make it stand out on its own. The characters overall are really good. You do start to like these characters as the movie goes on, and you understand what to like about them, what to hate about them. You can understand why the characters' motivations are there, and then you have characters like, well, Charlize Theron plays the girlfriend to a guy in the movie, and she's only really in the movie for a short amount of time, and actually there's an extended version where they actually do focus more on her character. But I want to say this about that. There was an extended version that came out in 2007. They add like 40 minutes of additional footage to the film in which you get more character development, most of it on Charlize Theron's character. There's a scene where the two of them make out. At their apartment. There's a scene where there's a version where they go deep into the relationship between Guy and Faye, played by Liv Tyler, and his deteriorating relationship with Tina, as well as Tina's budding relationship with the dentist, Dr. Collins. And it's also revealed here that Tom Hanks' character is not only gay, but he's in a relationship with a man played by, of all people, Howie Long. That Howie Long from the Los Angeles Raiders back then, and who's now an analyst on Fox, who's been an analyst for a number of years on Fox. And that's kind of amusing. That's kind of amusing to have that in there. But there's more camera time devoted to the romance between the bass player and the leading singer of the Chanterelles. In the theatrical cut, the romance is depicted mainly as an crush on the bass part of the bass player. The extended cut clearly shows that his efforts are very much successful. At the end of the extended edition, rather than becoming a studio drummer at the recommendation of Del Paxton, Guy actually becomes a disc jockey for the jazz station and records a documentary series on interviews with legendary jazz musicians. And honestly, you can see why a lot of these scenes were left on the cutting room floor of the original release, because quite frankly, I didn't really think you needed to add all that stuff back into the movie. I think the original cut alone works really well on its own. It's well paced enough. It did much of the job that I think Hanks was trying to show, and there's hardly any scenes that feel like that needed to be taken out. With this, a lot of what they add in feels unnecessary. I should also note that around the time that this came out, there was also a director's cut that Fox put out for Big, which adds another half hour of deleted footage, and again, it's completely unnecessary. It's cool to see that footage, but it's kind of like my argument with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It'd be cool to see that additional footage that they took out of the movie, but what they gave us with the original Planes, Trains, and Automobiles cut that we got works fine as it is. And I think the original cut for this should have added more of the relationship between Guy and Tina, because in the original cut, she's only in the movie for about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But they could have added some more scenes with her. I wouldn't mind that too much, but the extended cut is just unnecessary. It doesn't really serve a purpose to be put together, because the original cut is at a reasonable 108 minutes. It's a much better film than the extended cut is, but that's just my opinion on it. So, but really the best thing about the movie is the music, and the music in this is really damn good. I mean, the best song in the movie is That Thing You Do. It's a song that just, whenever you listen to it, it's just stuck in your head, and you immediately start tapping along, start wanting to sing along. When that played in the trailer, I'm trying my best not to start singing along, because I will do just that. I mean, it's that good of a song. It captures the style of music from the 60s with a little bit of the rock music of the 90s. It's just a catchy song, man. There's a lot of the movie that I really love in the original cut. It makes it one of my favorites. Great characters, great music, a great story, great fun to watch all around. It definitely deserves a rewatch and a resurgence, and I'm glad to see that it is getting a resurgence in the last couple of years. Definitely watch this movie. Watch the original cut, avoid the director's cut, because you will be more than satisfied with this original cut that they had. And I kind of wish Tom Hanks would direct more movies, because the last one he did was Larry Crown, and that was 15 years after this movie came out, and even that one was not that good of a movie. I kind of want him to go back to do something like this, That Thing You Do again. I don't know if he'll ever do it, but I'd really like to see Tom Hanks tackle another directorial effort here, because his first time out, he nailed it right out of the park. This is such a damn good movie. I can't recommend it enough. That Thing You Do, see it. You're doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. Check it out. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our next movie, and that is the third installment of the Mighty Ducks series, D3. Yeah, you can kind of guess that this is pretty much just the same movie as the last two, only without any of the heart or the enjoyment to it. I like to compare the Mighty Ducks movies to the Pitch Perfect series, because they're kind of in the same pathway. The first movie was a surprisingly enjoyable film. Second one is a lot of fun. It's definitely not as good as the previous film, but it does have its elements. Third film just kind of ruins it all the way through. It's just kind of like, let's just do another movie because we need to make it a trilogy. And I'm not kidding. This one was pretty bad. I mean, it's just such a lifeless movie on so many levels. You know, Jeffrey Nordling, who plays the new coach in this, God help him, he's trying his best here. And he just comes off as Diet Emilio Estevez. I mean, Emilio Estevez himself doesn't really do a whole lot in the movie. He's kind of half-assing it. Like, he doesn't do anything noteworthy or important. I think honestly, the clips you saw in that trailer there, I think that's pretty much all the footage of him in the movie. He's really not in the movie for that amount of time. And I really did try to get this one a fair shot, but honestly, it just seems like a movie where they just ran out of ideas and of what you could do with these characters, and just said it basically feels like Disney wanted the trilogy, so rehash it, just do something different. Don't do the same thing over and over again. If they did something different, they would have been an actually better movie, but you can just tell that zero effort went into this one whatsoever. I can barely remember a damn thing that happens in this movie. It has no memorability to it. There's no enjoyment factor from it. It's just dull. It's lifeless. It's a waste of money, and it shows that there was nothing redeemable to it at all. Like, you should have just ended the D2, but you didn't. You let this come out. You got your trilogy, and you ended the series on a real downer of a note. I mean, what more do I have to say about it? D3, The Mighty Ducks, definitely did not deliver on the same level as the first two movies. So, with that said, on to the next movie, and that is Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon, and Joe Pantoliano in Bound. I don't know why I said Steve Buscemi. He's not in this movie, but I did remember that Joe Pantoliano was in here. And this is the first feature film directed by the Wachowskis, back then known as the Wachowski brothers. And this was the first movie that got them noticed. This is a film about a woman played by Jennifer Tilly who escapes her relationship with her mafioso boyfriend, and she enters this affair with this other ex-con played by Gina Gershon, and the two women hatch a scheme to steal $2 million of mafia money. And this is a really damn good movie. This is a really solid film featuring two very good, well-written female characters. They did not write gays and lesbians very well for most of the 1990s. For most of the 1990s, I mean, back then it was really hard to get a strongly written, well put together is gay character or lesbian character, with a couple of exceptions, something like Will and Grace or specific other movies that I can't think of for the top of my head. But this is definitely one of those films that really is one of the best ones from that time period. I mean, Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon just work off each other so well. The chemistry is so good. These are two very terrific actresses working off each other, and they're just really taking control of the show here. I mean, the cast overall is great here. The visuals are very nice here. You definitely get a sense of what would eventually come with the Matrix movies later on from the Wachowskis here, and it just really is just so well done. It's a very solid film. I don't think I really need to say too much more about this one that hasn't been said already. People have seen it, and you can pretty much see why it still holds up after all these years. It's really incredibly well done. It's a solid film, great entertainment all around, great thriller. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it already. So that's Bound. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next movie, and that is David Cronenberg's Crash. So, not surprisingly, this movie got a pretty polarizing reception, but then again, that was David Cronenberg back at this point. I mean, it started with Naked Lunch, and then followed that up with Butterfly, and then this. This certainly was a film that really was something very different and very, very controversial at the time. And it's a film that I remember seeing it a long time ago, and I remember thinking the same thing. It definitely has that kind of a feel of a movie that could polarize people. Some people will love it, some people will hate it. I was kind of in the middle on it. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, and from what I remember for it, I liked it, but I didn't really love it. It was one of those movies that just felt like it did what it was promising to do. It was a very dark, twisted film. It delivers on what it promises. Some of it's uncomfortable, some of it is very enjoyable. And that's what David Cronenberg does best. He did best at that time. He made you question, should you be enjoying this, should you not? This is certainly not on the levels of something like Naked Lunch. That's a film that's still very bizarre and unique in its own way, but this film comes pretty close. I think it works. What I think really works about it are the performances in here. James Spader, Holly Hunter, Elias Koteas, Deborah Unger, Rosanna Arquette. The idea is very good. The story is very clever. And it does get uncomfortable watching some of these scenes get pretty graphic at times. Like, I get what they're trying to do. I get what they're trying to point out here. And you got to give Cronenberg his credit for doing whatever he thought was going to be worthy of entertainment value. And whether or not you feel about it, like, it's still a film that's it's still a very polarizing film. There's parts of it I really like. There's parts of it I really don't like. I'm glad I saw it, but it's one of those ones where you question whether or not did he make an actual good film or did he make something terrible, and you never really know. And really, that's kind of what I like about some of these type of movies. Like, you guess it, you have to make the decisions for yourself on whether or not on how you should feel on it. And I think that makes it one of the more unique experiences I've ever had with a film like this. Like I said, it's not a good. It's a mix of a good film and a bad film. Definitely somewhere in the middle. I've only seen it one time, but the one time I saw it, I thought that was very interesting. And I don't know if I'd have to see it again to see if it holds up after all these years. But like I said before, when I saw it, I thought it was okay, and I definitely could see a lot of polarizing controversy coming from this, and it definitely shows. So that's Crash. Let's go ahead and take a look at our last movie that we have here, and that is Infinity. So as you can tell, that's Matthew Broderick playing the physicist in here, Richard Feynman, who actually directs this movie. This is the only movie he's ever directed, and this film is actually written by his mother, Patricia Broderick. And the story basically is kind of a mix of both. What do you care when other people think? By Richard Feynman, and also follows the story of Richard and his father Melville, who's played by Peter Riegert, walking through the woods where Melville shows his scientific inspiration for Richard. And in 1934, both him and Arlene, played by Patricia Arquette, are in high school and their romantic relationship starts. Arlene gets sick with tuberculosis. They move to Los Alamos, New Mexico, where Arlene follows him later to a hospital in Albuquerque, where she dies. And the film basically ends with Fenneman crying at the sight of his red dress Arlene had pointed out. It feels like a film that's kind of pretentious. I've never seen it before. I didn't even know Matthew Broderick even directed the film. I'm just reading what it says on Wikipedia, which I probably gave away the spoilers for you if you really are interested in seeing this. But, I mean, I don't know. It feels like a film that feels like Matthew Broderick trying to get an Oscar baitish type of film. And I don't know. It doesn't have bad reviews on here, but it doesn't have anything that makes me want to say, I really should check this movie out. It feels like a movie that was trying to get an Oscar push, but it never really did, and it feels like the story has been done over and over again, and that's pretty much all I got for you. I haven't seen the film, so I can't really say if it's good or not, but that's pretty much all I know about this one, Infinity. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. We've got a lot of movies to look at next time, including Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer in The Ghost of the Darkness, Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson and Reddy Harlan's A Long Kiss Goodnight, Chris O'Donnell and Gene Hackman in The Chamber, Liam Neeson and Michael Collins, The Grass Harp, Trees Lounge, Microcosmos, Beautiful Thing, Al Pacino and Looking for Richard, Love Is All There Is, and Bitter Sugar. So that's 11 movies that we're going to be looking at next time around. Or considering what we've been getting the last couple of days, maybe we'll get less than that, but 11 movies, that's a lot of movies to get to, so we'll get to those on the next episode, hopefully. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, but until then, as always, take care.